Harrison with you. This is Go Harrison, our brand new partnership with WCOBM. We are really glad to have it. Bringing up our audience, by the way, from FM radio all the way up to almost 4 million people now, including social media. So we are really glad to be aboard. Glad to have you here as well as you live tweet and live social media us. You'll note next to me a huge panel, a panoply, a pantheon of parturient participants. I don't know what that means, but I love to alliterate, as you can tell. These wonderful people are very smart, and they've been working, with the exception of this man, who is neutral. Key thing, he is Switzerland. They are not. They have been working very studiously to follow what's going on with Bernie Sanders and to support the tens of millions of millennials fighting for a new world. And where is that going to go? Next to me is Greg Palast, and he is with BBC. You have read his stuff endlessly in The Guardian. And, of course, he's got a new documentary coming out and was brought here by Rolling Stone magazine to do an investigative story on election fraud in 2016. And in coming up in about 5 minutes or so, we're going to actually see a full 5 minutes of brand new footage that maybe you haven't seen yet from San Diego, where ballots, voting ballots here in California, remember this is the 7th largest economy in the world, 38 million people in California. It's a state when something happens here, the rest of the world follows. These ballots were whited out. Bernie Sanders with whiteout like you would buy at Staples or Office Depot. Whited out Bernie Sanders, maybe other candidates. Real election fraud. This is what Greg is here to uncover. And let's start with you, and then we're going to go to Michelle Bird, we're going to go to John Sarley. But election fraud in California, people have been talking about it. It's real, isn't it, Greg?
Yeah, it's like suddenly we have hundreds of thousands of people disenfranchised. Disenfranchised, by the way, is a very fancy term for someone shoplifting your vote and taking it away. Now, again, because I'm a journalist, I'm not on one side or another, Democrat, Republican, Bernie, Hillary, any of that stuff. I was just horrified because I just moved back to my hometown here in Los Angeles to find that, well, first of all, on election night, they called the election for Hillary Clinton. They said that she'd won by 400,000 votes.
Wait, I'm going to interrupt you. 2 days before, CNN said she was the presumptive nominee. First time, by the way, ever in human history where before you vote, the vote is decided.
Well, what was interesting, though, they said on election night of the June 7 California primary, they said that Hillary Clinton, with 100% of precincts reporting, which sounds very official, all it means is that someone literally called from a precinct. That's all it means. It doesn't mean anything. 100% precincts reporting. Hillary Clinton won by 400,000 votes, which sounds pretty darn convincing, except that, ready for this? 2.4 million votes were not yet counted. Now, 2.4 million votes not yet counted. That's like the total number of voters in Switzerland, okay? And those votes weren't counted, and somehow they knew who the winner was without counting those votes. It is now, as we're speaking, 1 month after the election. There are still more than 100,000 votes not counted, and as I suspected, most of the votes, those 2 million votes that weren't counted, went to Bernie Sanders. And they did everything in the world to make sure those votes don't get counted, and certainly that the result did not get reported. And this is, I'm horrified, because I've been traveling all over the United States. Look, I don't expect us to have a democracy like Venezuela, but I at least expect it to be something like Illinois. But California, I expect it to be better than Alabama and Ohio and Florida.
In other parts of the world, when you get this level of election fraud, we roll in tanks. We send in the United Nations. Here it's...
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it's really shocking. Now, I know we have a piece of video, and I want to, by the way, acknowledge Jake, who is really a splendid video engineer here. Do you have a little clip there, Jake, that is called Voter Fraud? It's a little standalone. Okay, never mind. Just know we would have shown that to you, and it has nothing to do with Jake. We're talking to Greg Palast. You know him from the BBC. You know him from The Guardian magazine. You now know him from Rolling Stone magazine, brought in to cover election fraud. Let's next go to Michelle Bird. Michelle, you're an activist.
Yes.
Still Sanders? Because it's still Sanders, right?
Definitely. Yeah, and we had a march on June 26th called the Still Sanders March, that a group of us that still believed strongly in this movement, that saw the election fraud happening, we got together, and in 2.5 weeks we put this huge march together in the middle of Hollywood, close to where we are right now. And so many people, you see it online, you see it at the march, are still supporting, Senator Sanders and everything that he stands for ethically, socially, morally, politically, everything. There's millions of us out there. This is far from over.
And John Sarley, you run a Facebook page that has blown up entirely, Bernie Sanders for President 2016. You did it kind of because it was fun to do. And now you've got more people on it than you can even monitor.
Absolutely. And I have more Facebook friends now than I ever had before. I'm reaching my limit of 5,000. And I've discarded a lot of my old friends who supported, let's just say, other candidates. So, yeah, it started as a lark, and it's something that I just believed in. I believe in this man. I followed Bernie for years and years on MSNBC and other venues. And I said, why don't we start a page? Let's try to get some other supporters around. So it started with 10 people, then it started with 20 people, and then it ended up with, like today, I think it reached the 75,000 mark.
So here's the question, John, because it's relevant. If we were to watch MSDNC or CNN or even Fox News, we think Bernie Sanders retired, 2 months ago, and he's off on a farm in Virginia somewhere. Bernie who? Not the case, is it?
No, certainly not our followers. Everybody is really, really smart, and they're aware and they're informed. And they know that Bernie is still in this race, that he still has an excellent chance of winning the nomination, or if not winning the nomination, going independent and going with the Green Party. And there's a lot of hope that that he will overcome, because the people that visit our page and who are followers feel disenfranchised is a very polite word to saying getting screwed over. I mean, we've been mugged, we've been robbed, we've been beat up, they've taken our lunch money, and now they want us to vote for the candidate who did that to all of us. So people are outraged, and we want to keep, one of the reasons why our page is gathering steam rather than losing steam like other Bernie Facebook pages, is the fact that we've gone strictly Bernie or bust. We believe it's going to be Bernie, or it's not going to be anybody. We're not taking any sloppy seconds.
Unless you like that sort of thing.
What does that mean?
But that's I'm not. We're going to define that during the break. You don't get to listen in on this. When we return, we're going to be talking to Greg Palast. We've got some social media questions. Is this voter fraud happening in other states, among any others? You can send your live comments to WCOBM.com. You can also live tweet us at GoHarrison. As we continue, we're talking about voter fraud in one of the largest states in the United States. It's going to have an effect all over the nation, and it is, which is why Greg Palast was brought here by Rolling Stone magazine to do a huge expose and a new documentary coming out all about this fraudulent stuff going on. So hang on. In this video you're going to watch next, you're going to see a man, Larry Elger, live down in, or he was at the moment, he still is alive as a matter of fact, it's kind of a good deal. He was down in San Diego confronting this, and you will see with your own eyes these ballots where whiteout has been put by certain candidates and certain parties over other certain candidates. This is your democracy. Hold your breath. Hang on. We'll be back in a sec.
From Hollywood, this is Harrison.
Okay, what's the code that's saying that I can't film? You want to look at the Bill of Rights?
You have a choice. You can see them as I'm moving forward, or you can go away, because I'm not going to allow filming.
What part of the election?
I don't care what part of the election. There's no filming.
Oh, don't say that. Please don't say that. You're being filmed right now.
This is all going to go used in the court. We're going to bring it to the judge.
Members of the public want to see their ballots being counted. Why won't you let us in there?
What
are you guys doing where you're not letting us in?
We're doing what we should be doing. We're processing.
Moving away from the public. That's what you're doing.
Over there? What's that woman doing? What's that woman doing all the way in the back?
She's the one who's sitting over here. We decided to pick up all her stuff and move over.
That's right, because she didn't want to be filmed.
We weren't filming.
So you're working in secret. We're filming you, barring access to the public.
I suggest that you find something that says that we can't film.
No, we can't. You guys are violating election codes.
Excuse me. We can't carry on our 1% manual power. Can you please keep your voices down, or we'll have to ask you to leave?
We would like an escort inside of that room.
We would
What
like
is your
you
name?
to keep your voice down.
What is your name?
My name's Erin Mayer.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Please keep your voices down.
No,
so we can
I'm not
carry on.
going to. You guys are violating election codes. I'm not going to shut up about it.
Well, we'll escort you out then so that the others can do what they need to do.
Yeah, excuse me, George. You want them to move closer, they stay right there. You're going to film, they're going to stay where they are.
I'm filming now to see what your reaction is, but we were not filming, we were not taking pictures before.
Mike told us you could get an escort inside all of the rooms. What happened to that agreement?
I don't know what happened to that agreement, but I know
You
what
were
I'm
in that
doing.
meeting.
Well,
Why
we
can't we
decided,
get in there?
subsequent to you being here, that this process is not going to be allowed people inside. We've been
They're
upholding
not letting the
that.
public into these rooms.
We've been
That's what's
upholding
happening.
We made an
this process
agreement
for the last
before,
2 weeks
though.
since we started extracting
You're disregarding our
ballots
total
from individual
agreement.
envelopes. And it will continue. That woman's been here every day for the last week and a half. She has not entered the whole time.
I know, we can't see what you guys are doing. This is violating election code by not letting the public in to see it. In Norwalk County, people can come in and see them.
Okay.
You can get right up there, right behind people. Can you see anything? I can't see anything. But I don't know what's going on. The public does.
I've explained it many, many times. It's true. Many, many hours telling these people what's going on. And I'll be
From Hollywood, this is Harrison.
Okay, I'm here with the San Diego County Register of Voters with
Charlie Wallace.
Charlie, and you're the IT manager?
Yes.
All right, and what's your job?
Job in the elections world is to tabulate ballots and to do the official canvass. Basically a precinct balancing, a checkbook balancing of all of the ballots that were issued versus all the ballots that were cast.
The 1% actual?
Not the 1%. The 1% is conducted by another department.
Okay.
So they segregate that so it's not a part of the IT environment.
Okay, cool. All right, so the reason why we're down here today is that we have heard that reporting says that the ballots are being manipulated with whiteout.
That is a correct statement.
And that's party rules.
That's just this is party rule. I don't have anything to do with
Yeah,
that.
exactly. That's not San Diego County. That's what the party tells you to do.
Yes, because this is a semi-open primary. Our registration and vote by mail sections, they adjudicate these ballots. They look at them, they determine what kind of action needs to be taken, whether they voted across party, whether they voted out of precinct, and they indicate on that envelope how to act upon that ballot. And that's what we do. We look at the codes and we act upon the ballot in accordance with whether or not they voted the correct party or they voted in the correct precinct.
Go Harrison. Live from Hollywood, it's Harrison.
Harrison with you. Glad to be back. This is, of course, Go Harrison. This is our premiere show here on WOCBM. Our very new favorite best friend, for sure. We've been very lucky. We now expand our audience to almost 4 million of you. Going from public radio into social media into TV, combining it all into one whole soup, cat, and pizzas. It's exciting, and it's in color. Our favorite color, color. Absolutely. Now, you just saw some video of voter fraud firsthand. Plus, you saw an engagement between the photographer and one of the election officials. And you get a sense of the bait and switch going on. And right now, we're going to finish up this segment as we continue to talk to Greg Palast. You know him from BBC and The Guardian, where he's been banished from U.S. soil. Why? Because he tells the truth, and it seems to be inconsistent with the networks these days. So he's been brought back by Rolling Stone magazine to do an explosive article, a series of stories actually on election fraud in 2016, plus a new documentary. Next to him is Michelle Bird. She is with Still Sanders, because Bernie Sanders has not gone away. I know. I know. There's millions of you who know that, but according to the Time Warner Corporation and the Comcast Corporation, Bernie who? Not the case at all. Next to her is Don Irwin, another, by the way, a brilliant software engineer. Both of you are super high functioning, which is why I love the fact that it seems everyone who loves Bernie is way above my pay grade. So it is an upgrade for me to associate myself with you. We're going to just quickly ask Greg, because we've got a bunch of social media questions. Is this voter fraud happening in other states? Which kind of voters are being targeted? Who's responsible? All in 20 seconds.
Okay, the answer is yeah. Here's the deal, Mr. Go, which is that 29 states, for example, one of the latest things I've uncovered, 29 states are using something called interstate cross-check. It's a system by which they are they've targeted, ready for this, 7 million U.S. voters. I got the list. They're supposed to be secret. I investigated reports. I got all the secret stuff. And it says confidential. I want that. Anyway, so I got the 7 million names. And what it is basically people, they're saying people are voting twice in 2 different states. So someone named, for example, Jose Hernandez is voting in Michigan, and another guy named Jose Hernandez is voting in Florida. Clearly, they're the same guy voting twice, committing a crime, so they wipe out their votes. You think this doesn't happen? It is happening right now.
Wait a minute. So Mildred McCutcheon in Lake Forest, Illinois, and Mildred L. McCutcheon in Iowa, 2 entirely different people, both get knocked off the rolls?
Yeah. So, for example, we have a case of Maria Isabel Hernandez, Maria Cristina Hernandez. They say it's the same person voting in 2 different states. Of course, she changes her middle name. Sometimes they change their gender.
Or die.
Or they have junior and senior as the same person because they have the same name. I guess they never heard of those things. It sounds laughable, but it's actually it's deadly, and it's going to have a huge effect. We figure about 1 million people are going to get dumped out by the November election unless there's real action taken. It is a stealth system, and that's just one of the things that they're doing. So what I saw in California, the systems used in California are nationwide, and who are they targeting mostly? What's unusual, it's usually targeting voters of color, because you can imagine when they're using this common name match, Jose Hernandez, Michael Jackson, and so
for real,
the last name,
for real,
David Lee, David Kim. These are
now, wait a minute.
names.
Yes, there's a trend.
There's a trend.
These certain last names have a likelihood of voting a certain way. Is that right? That's kind of the plot of the play here.
What's interesting is that this hits. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
1 in 8 Asian voters in these states are on these lists to be removed. 1 in 8 Asian voters. Now, how did that happen? Because suddenly Asians are voting as if they've turned black. About 74%. 3 out of 4 voted for Barack Obama. So now the Republicans are in a panic because they've not only lost the Latino vote, it's pretty clear. They haven't had for decades the African American vote, but now they've lost this big growing vote, the Asian American vote. And so the only thing that they can do is say, well, if we don't let them vote, no problem. Again, it's happening all over. It's usually minority voters. It happened in California. They were treating white people voting for Bernie Sanders as if they had turned black, because all these tricks usually reserved for black folk. Like in California, there were 1 million people pushed to something called a provisional ballot. Like
that was me.
Yeah,
I'm an independent.
Right. And what happens is provisional ballots, I call them placebo ballots. You get to think you voted, but you may not. They throw out 1 in 3. In California, they've thrown out at least 100,000 of those, and it's pretty rare that I found white people getting those things, but Sanders people were getting them. Literally 1 million Sanders voters. 1 million got these crazy provisional ballots in California, but it's a national disease. The one good thing about Bernie people getting clonged like this is that it's usually a fairly educated group, an active group, and a white group, frankly, to a great extent, who usually don't suffer these suppression tactics. So now all Americans are in it together.
Yeah, it's really true. And by the way, if you see people lurking in the background, they're not really lurking. We have a Japanese TV network here in the corner. You can't see them, but we can. And all other people here. So they're all doing the Lord's work. Not to worry here. We've got the Lord's camera work. Next to me, Greg Palast. Next to Greg is Michelle Bird, still Sanders. And then next to her is Don Irwin. And again, high-functioning people. And we've got a convention coming up, Don. It's a big deal, isn't it?
It is a big deal, and it's actually the focus of a lot of the work that we're doing here in Los Angeles at this time, because as you know, it's prohibitively expensive to get to that convention. A lot of people have to stay in certain hotels that the DNC designates that they stay in, and frankly, we've been extremely successful in bringing in working people, young people. We've got 17, 18-year-old delegates here in the greater Los Angeles area. So part of the Still Sanders March, which Michelle and I and another group of fantastic volunteers sort of banded together, part of the reason for it was actually to raise money for the delegates. So there's short-term goals, there's medium-term goals, there's long-term goals, and the immediate goal is to get every single one of those delegates to the convention and get them to represent. So that's what we're working very hard. We've got fundraisers happening across the city, and you know, we're very hopeful.
So, Michelle, we're right at the end of the clock here, but one wonders when one watches television, regular commercial corporate television, why conspicuously missing is Bernie Sanders? It's Trump and Hillary, and then it's Hillary and Trump. And then it's the President of the United States endorsing her before the FBI has made a decision. A lot of these things seem to be going on, but Bernie somehow is missing. Do you think that's on purpose, or do you think he's just really not that interesting to put on television?
I think they're just trying to sweep us under the rug. You know, he was in CNN this morning, but even the reporter was trying to push him to endorse Hillary, of pushing why wasn't he endorsing Hillary or supporting the Democratic Party. And right now, you know, the focus is the people, and that's what he's trying to focus on, and that's why he is fighting for so many things currently, and he's currently working. You know, the primaries are over, but he's still out there working with the people. That's what, you know, the Still Sanders March was about, was bringing the community together and really educating people to take action in their own communities to become leaders.
We're regrettably out of time. Time does fly when I'm having this much fun. I hope you have too. Give us a quick, how do we follow you, Greg?
www.gregpalast.com, GREGPALAST.com.
And Michelle, how do we follow you?
And on me, Instagram or Facebook, Spread the Bird, Spread THA Bird, and Facebook.com, Bernie Sanders is.
And Don, what's our best go-to?
I'm not as fancy as these two guys. Just Don Irwin on Facebook, or you can reach me through Michelle.
And John Sarley, how do we follow your Facebook page?
Facebook. It's the only one that starts with President. President Bernie Sanders 2016. Come and join us. We'd love to have you.
All right. Harrison with you. Thank you so much for joining us here on Go Harrison and our brand new love relationship with WCOBM.